Hey, Thirsty Thursday, we are inside you, we being the Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am your host, Emerson Latia. Very excited to be here today because we have a lot on tap this morning. Don't we, Samir, behind the camera? No, there you go. Thanks, babe. All right, did the Yankees just land their missing piece? Yeah, look, painful evening last night for some Red Sox fans, especially those who are fans of big biceps. Pierce takes us on a spin through his F1 rankings. We got some best bets as well. Plus, great. We're going to live, laugh, love. Who to roster in DFS ahead of Liv's third tournament ever. This one in New Jersey in the States. And it's coming to the Boston area here in about a month. But first, let's bring in DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, Steve Buchanan, because it's time for Camp Crazies, when we overreact to the latest NFL training camp headlines. Like Mike Thomas, bam! Did you know he was back? Practicing with the Saints for the first time in 18 months, the injury-plagued wide receiver said he was lost for words, something we do not struggle with here on The Sweat. We haven't seen Thomas since week 14 of the 2020 campaign. Bukes, what are reasonable expectations for this guy? And with Jameis Winston as his quarterback, too.
Yeah, and Jameis Winston that can see, right? Got
Yes.
LASIK surgery. It should be 20/20 vision. You should be able to see, more than 5 yards ahead of him. That's always a plus when you're the starting quarterback. But, it feels like for the first time in a long time on the Saints that there's going to be some competition for targets in this offense, right? I feel like we haven't had that in quite a while. They signed Jarvis Landry. They drafted Chris Olave in the draft there. So there's going to be some options there. We'll see what ends up coming out with Alvin Kamara if he ends up getting suspended for disciplinary reasons or not. So that could hurt or help there. But then also you got to talk about, offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael. When he took over for Sean Payton back in 2012, while he was doing his suspension, 50% of the time they were doing 3 wide receiver sets there. So that is always going to take something into consideration as well. So I think we have to kind of, pump the brakes a little bit here on Thomas. This is going to be the first time we've seen him on the field. But with that being said, we all know what the talent is like when he's on the field. A healthy Thomas is never a bad Thomas. So I think that, this is someone you're taking a little bit later in your drafts if you're drafting him. But this is somebody with an amazing ceiling and an immense high upside.
Jeff, the unanswered question is how his ankle will fare when engaging in contact, like under a workload too of a full season here. Over under receiving yards on the DK Sportsbook for Thomas, 800.5, dude.
Yeah, it sounds so small, but I mean, like you got to understand about Mike Thomas. Like the big news right now is just that he's on the field. That just tells you the history here and like the injury plagueness that is Michael Thomas over the last couple of years. Buchanan makes good points. I actually think that the Saints are going to throw the ball a little bit more than they have in the past, because I've even talked about, well, they're a rush first team. How many targets are they going to be around? But like, there is a new OC. I don't think this will be the exact same team we saw last year. I think it'll be fairly similar though. And the real thing that worries me about Mike Thomas and why I'm not touching the over here, I would probably consider the under, to be honest, as a bet, is Jarvis Landry. Wherever Jarvis Landry goes, he sucks targets out. You just look at his career. I think he's had like less than 90 targets once in his career, regardless of where he's gone. He's going to take some of those slot targets for sure. And we just don't know how much Michael Thomas is even going to be on the field. There is an immense ceiling, still there is. But like right now, I mean, there's no reason for me, just because he's on one practice field for one day, to start leaning over here.
Yeah, Pierce, Thomas nearly 3 full years removed from a historic campaign in 2019. That's when he broke the single-season receptions record, 149 catches there.
I'm going to mention Taysom Hill. What's the deal? That shows how much we've grown since last season. The Saints were so bad. That was all that we talked about. Now it's who cares about Taysom Hill? They've got 3 good receivers. They've got a backfield. I guess the quarterback has LASIK eye surgery. Even with Andy Dalton in this back as a quarterback, they could be a halfway decent team. So Saints fans should be excited. DFS players, probably not so much. There's just too many mouths to feed. You've got erratic quarterback play. Also, the defense, this is a top 10 defense, and we could see this team be a little bit more conservative and just let their defense play solid. Don't make too many mistakes. Don't let Jameis throw the ball all around the field. You could see that happen. DFS is kind of a stay away early on, but Saints fans should be pretty happy.
Okay, well, in Kansas City, another guy who was dealing with some injuries last year, was disappointing following his rookie campaign. That's running back Clyde Edwards. So the Chiefs activated him off the PUP list on Wednesday here, guys. If he's healthy, how confident would you feel taking the over on his rushing yards total on the DK Sportsbook, which is 700.5 yards here, Jeff?
Not very confident. I mean, like, again, you look at the Chiefs backfield and, who did they bring in? They brought in an early down back specifically because this team, quite frankly, is kind of like, they're basically just, they don't trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire anymore. I mean, Ronald Jones is a pretty competent early down back. Does he have his limitations in the pass game? Yes. But, we're talking rushing totals here with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. And who, was a pretty good receiver in college, but really hasn't shown that kind of upside in the passing game either in the pros. Guess what? Jerick McKinnon was brought back as well. Guess who was taking snaps down the stretch for the Chiefs last year? It was Jerick McKinnon, clearly a guy that Andy Reid trusts. Now you're being asked to take the over on Clyde Edwards-Helaire props, who just recently got off the pup list. No, I mean, like, this guy is a clear fade for me. Again, much like Michael Thomas. The big news is just that he's getting on the practice field and being healthy. Quite frankly, I think that there's also value here just in terms of like fantasy purposes, targeting some of these cheap, these Chiefs, other backfields like Jones and Jerick McKinnon later in drafts. So no, Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now, there's just no reason to be super bullish on him personally. He's going to get mixed in, but like, again, the injury history, just really the poor play, is just not a player I want to be targeting for overs or anything like that.
Yeah, Steve, Jeff makes a good point there. Like, maybe he gets a little more active as, in a pass catching role, because that is the main reason the Chiefs drafted him in the first round anyway.
Yeah, that was a big reason, and then it really didn't come to fruition, which is kind of funny too when you figure you're on the Chiefs and you have Patrick Mahomes under center, the guy throwing all the passes. But it wouldn't be an early NFL season without some Ronald Jones hype, and that's just what seems to happen every time. And then we all go, "Why did we fall for that again?" And that's kind of what's happening here. But Andy Reid mentioned a few months ago that Jones is going to be a major part of this offense. Whether that actually stays true or not has yet to be seen. But I'm with Jeff here. Like, if I'm going to get excited about somebody on the Chiefs, my first, second, third choice is not going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because the injuries, just the lack of production. I'd love to see him in a more pass-heavy role, because I think that actually, would suit him well. And that's where I'm targeting if I want to go over on a prop for CH. Maybe he gets those receptions, or maybe he gets those passing yards in this type of offense, because, for Ronald Jones, if he ends up being, the lead running back here, he made plenty of mistakes in Tampa. And that was in an offense that was one of the most pass-heavy in the league. It was the most pass-heavy in the league. Now he moves to a team that was the fifth most pass-heavy team in the league. So it's not like he's going to be getting those type of touches. So I think going just, not being excited about CEH is the best way to do this. I'd rather be surprised about the outcome than disappointed in what I think is going to happen here, because you just simply can't trust him in this offense right now.
I mean, pure CEH has now become something of like a punchline throughout the fantasy football community here, but no Tyreek Hill. So is it too late to target this guy in fantasy football?
Yeah, Clyde is overrated, and the Tyreek Hill thing is probably the biggest influencing factor. When he had an elite passing game around him, he had a decent season his rookie season. Well, this is not really the same elite offense without Tyreek Hill. It's going to be tougher for him to get open. Defenses are going to key on him more if he is even on the field. He hasn't proven that he can stay on the field. 2 seasons, he's been dealing with injuries. Why all of a sudden now is he going to be healthy? Usually injuries just compound. And if he is going to get an increased workload, then why would he all of a sudden become healthier? It should be more injuries if he's going to play more. And as far as the passing game works, you've got a mobile quarterback. And mobile quarterbacks don't tend to really check down to running backs. They kind of wing the ball around. We've seen that with Mahomes. So I don't really see much of a passing role increasing. There's going to be a floor there, but I don't see much of a ceiling for Clyde. And, I kind of like Rojo. I'm buying the Rojo hype.
All right, let's go, man. From Rojo's current team to his former one here, Pierce. We'll stick in the backfield, too, where, hey, Leonard Fournette's weight has been a huge topic of conversation, no pun intended there. According to our friend Doug Kyde, he showed up to camp down to 245 pounds. This is after reports of he was at mini camp 260 pounds, man. And you know what? The Bucs just added another receiver. They signed Julio Jones earlier in the week. Question is here, Pierce, how fantasy relevant will Fournette be given the Bucs' impressive passing attack?
Who cares about his weight? This isn't Lindell White killing 2 bottles of tequila at an Applebee's on Tuesday night. This is a guy put on a couple pounds. It's 2022. We've got advanced stats and we math and science everything, and we're going to measure a guy based on his body weight. That's what we're going to determine whether he is a good player or not. Fournette, he might not be elite, but he is still a very solid option, and he's just a winner. He almost got Jacksonville to the Super Bowl. He did win a Super Bowl with Tampa. He's a guy that will be absolutely fine. And also, you look at all these receivers now and pass catching options in Tampa. Very rarely is Fournette going to face 8 guys in the box. Now, do I think he's going to get enough volume to pay off? No, but we're going to see several games like last year where he got 4 touchdowns in one game. That definitely could be a possibility multiple times.
Okay, Jeff, how are we feeling here about Uncle Leo?
Not body shaming football players, people. These people, they put on like 15 pounds a meal. Have you seen these guys eat? And then they lose 15 pounds during the game. Congrats to Leonard Fournette for getting in shape in a week. It's great. I mean, look, the main thing here is like, look at the Bucs depth chart. This is just, I don't know why people do this. Like Rachaad White, everyone's hot and bothered. Rachaad White's going to be the passing back. Oh, he's going to be taking all the snaps. No, he's not. Guess what? It's Tom Brady. He likes veteran running backs. That's why Leonard Fournette took all the snaps down the stretch for them during the Super Bowl. That's why he took a huge snap load last year. It's going to be the same story here. Sure, you'll see Keyshawn Vaughn, White get on the field a little bit. Fournette's going to be fine. He's not like the highest end running back. He doesn't bring, like the upside of like a Taylor or a Christian McCaffrey necessarily, but like he's going to be fine from a usage standpoint.
Yeah.
So I think Fournette is actually turning into like the market here is just kind of dipped down a little bit on Fournette to the point where, like people are starting to take him, at the back end of the second round for fantasy. And I think for usage props, he's been pretty consistent. The workload's going to be there. He's a player I would lean over on in terms of rushing totals as well.
Okay, Bukes, the weight may not be a bad thing because you got to factor in the belief that the Bucs offense could be a tad more run-oriented under Todd Bowles now too.
Yeah, I mean, Brady calls the shots, so let's not even get into that there.
Right.
It doesn't matter who the coach is. Brady's going to be airing the ball out there. I mean, this was the most pass-heavy offense in all of football last year. I mean, and even still, Fournette was averaging about 18 touches per game, so it's not like he wasn't getting the ball anyways. And like Jeff said, the running back depth chart is razor thin, and that might even be generous. I don't know what's thinner than razor thin, but it's thinner than that. Like Gio Bernard is most likely going to be released during the preseason. That's something we've heard multiple times now. White, the third rounder, they think he's going to be stealing some from Fournette. I'm with Jeff. That ain't happening. Like Fournette is going to be the guy here. So I'm not worried about him at all. I think all the news and stuff surrounding him is positive. That's Brady's guy there. That's the guy he's going to be thrown to in those pass catching situations. So I'm not worried about Fournette at all. I'm all in on him in this Bucs offense, even with the addition of guys like Julio Jones and all the receivers that they have and all that. I think Fournette's going to be just fine.
Well, Steve, I want to know how worried you are about like Daniel Jones because he's entering his 4th year here as a pro. He's going to have his 3rd head coach in Brian Daboll, and Jones reportedly had an inconsistent first day of practice. Did end it with a rushing touchdown. What's the outlook for him, do you think, under Brian Daboll, Bukes? Like, can he do for the Giants quarterback what he did for Josh Allen in Buffalo?
Yeah, he's even said that he wants Jones to cut it loose this season. And I don't think he's talking about fumbling. I think he's talking about throwing it downfield. I mean, how much of a waste has Darius Slayton been for the Giants? This is somebody who can go downfield at incredible speed, and he just hasn't been utilized correctly. So if they're going to be able to let Jones get loose, cut it loose, and do what he can do, then guys like Slayton should be in a huge role for this Giants team. So I feel like this is, the right guy that can maybe help Jones here get to that next level, take that next step forward here. But even in the rushing side, I mean, this is somebody who's still averaged, just under 6 per game, 27 rushing yards per game. That doesn't sound like a ton, but it was still in the top 10 in the league. So if they start doing that a little bit more too, hopefully he doesn't trip and fall like we saw him do before. But as long as he's doing that efficiently, then maybe he can put it together here, but he just really needs to, tighten up back there, not be fumbling the ball, not be making those mistakes. And then that's what really could set Jones apart from some of these other quarterbacks here. So I like what the Giants might have going here. I don't think they're going to win a ton of games here, but I think we see Daniel Jones taking another step forward here this season.
Okay, Jeff, Jones has averaged 26 rushing yards here per game each of the past 3 seasons, which is enough to elevate an average passer to top 12 consideration. The problem is he's been far from an average passer since he's entered the league.
Well, okay, it depends what stat you're looking at, though. I mean, EPA per attempt on passes thrown 25 plus yards. This is from Warren Sharp Football. Daniel Jones is number 1 in EPA per attempt on throws over 25 yards since 2020. So he's actually been a good deep ball thrower. The problem with Jones is he rarely has had the time under the Giants O-line. I think Daboll's going to help with that. I think just getting the ball out a little bit quicker as well. We saw obviously the Bills turned into a more pass-happy team as well. So Daniel Jones, I think he's got the players there. I think Kadarius Toney is interesting. Galladay has to do something this year, find the end zone at least once. But I think that there's enough pieces there for Jones to potentially bounce back. I really do. The thing is, like you mentioned him as a quarterback, deeper in the DraftKings best ball leagues, I love that. I mean, pairing him with Toney or maybe a cheap Kenny Galladay, taking him as like a backup or something in redraft leagues, but over 360.5 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, over Daniel Jones's passing prop is probably one of my favorite quarterback props to target. If he stays on the field, I think he's going to smash that one. So I am kind of bullish on Daniel Jones. Definitely feel like I'm getting sucked into a trap right now. But this is a player, I think if he stays on the field, he's going to bust over these totals.
Pierce, could he possibly be a fantasy football sleeper this year in the quarterback department?
I'm the last person you should ask about Daniel Jones. I recommended him way too many times last season. I'm surprised they even let me back on here. I can't believe Steve's doing a segment with me. But, I like
Me
Daniel
too.
Jones. I like everything that he's got going. I know he had terrible 2 seasons. He has the rushing floor. He's got all these weapons if they can stay healthy.
Yeah.
He now has a solid offensive coordinator to help get him in the right direction. He's been dealing with poor offensive coordinators the last couple of seasons. If his line can stay healthy, it's just a lot of ifs. But the biggest if is if things are healthy,
Yes.
then I really believe Daniel Jones can be a factor in fantasy football.
Yeah, maybe his inability to really get into the end zone the past 2 seasons has crushed his fantasy football appeal for sure. But I don't know. We'll see if they can get more out of that receiving core. And as you mentioned, Pierce, everyone stays healthy on that offensive line. Steve, adios, dude. Good seeing you, man. Jeff, we're going to talk live golf rankings with you coming up. Pierce, we need you for F1 bets and DFS chatter right after we let Jessica Smentana of Dan Lebitard and friends catch you up on what went down last week in France in her own unique way.
I guess it's time for the F1 minute here, even though I want to hear that
What
sound
gave it
again.
away?
Je suis stressé pour les minutes de Formule 1. J'ai besoin d'énergie. Énergie.
Let's go,
Wait for the
energy.
beat drop. Oh, energy.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Circuit Powercar pour le Grand Prix de France. Les températures élevées sur le circuit signifient que la gestion des tout va être essentielle. Charles Leclerc, le pilote automobile monégasque, fait passer à Max Verstappen pour la première place. Le pilote Ferrari doit gagner pour rester dans les championnats. Mais non! Quelle horreur! Une catastrophe! Sacré bleu! Charles Leclerc sort de la course! Encore de la malchance! Il est fini! Une honte! Max Verstappen prend une grosse avance. Lewis Hamilton, le pilote Mercedes, est 12e. Carlos Sainz, l'autre pilote Ferrari, a commencé à la 19e place, d'où sa pénalité pour le changement du moteur. Et les roues contre roues avec Sergio Perez, mais l'imbécile de chez Ferrari recommence. Max Verstappen a fini premier de la course. Carlos Sainz est le pilote toujours. Lando, l'enfant Norris, a terminé 7e. Lance Stroll a terminé avec un point. Félicitations, Mike Crack.
Huh?
Wow! Oh my God!
Holy,
Merci.
oh my God. Was there an imbecile in there? Did you say
Les
imbecile?
imbéciles de chez Ferrari recommencent.
That sounded so exciting. I have no idea what happened.
Les pauvres Charles Leclerc, les pauvres.
My God, that was incredible.
That was
I
really
am
good.
so
Merci,
jealous that
merci
you can do that.
Christophe, merci Guillermo.
How much Google Translate did you need for that?
Mais non, je parle français.
You must have
Wow.
learned some French somewhere. You must have taken a
When?
class
When?
somewhere.
Where
Je parle
did
français.
you study abroad? My word.
Londres.
Really?
Yeah, you are
That sounds like a
unveiling
place.
on us
It
and
means
the
London,
audience
Thank you.
that you seem to speak French. We did not know that. Although we
Big
can't,
fan.
we
Well, it
don't,
was the French Grand Prix, Dan, if you didn't.
we don't have the ability to
on it.
check you though on whether or not the French was correct, but it sounded correct.
Well, I can read it to you in English if you want to hear it again.
Sure.
All right.
okay.
All right, here we go.
Great.
Well, now I have to translate it back. Okay, this is going to be actually kind of hard.
The English part.
I have to translate it back to English in my head from French, but I think I got this. All right. Hello and welcome to the Circuit Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix. The temperatures are high, which means that tire temperature is going to be very important. Charles Leclerc is the Monegasque driver, and he's going head-to-head versus Max Verstappen for first place. He needs to win to stay in the championship. But no, the horror, a catastrophe. Damn it, Charles Leclerc, he's out of the race. Bad luck once again. He's finished a disgrace. Max Verstappen has a big lead. Lewis Hamilton is in second place. Carlos Sainz, the other Ferrari driver, he came from 19th place because of a penalty due to changing his power unit. He's going wheel to wheel against Sergio Perez, but the idiots at Ferrari, they are idiots again. Max Verstappen finishes first. Carlos Sainz is the driver of the day. Baby Lando finishes in 7th. Lance Stroll finishes with a point. Congratulations, Mike Crack.
Huh?
You managed, and this is no indictment on the English version of this, but you managed to make that sound so much more exciting and faster. And
I mean, it was written for French. It wasn't written for English.
but you still did it extraordinarily well for French.
Yeah, that was incredible. Well done, Jess. Here is a look at where things stand, by the way, after the French Grand Prix. After Max Verstappen claimed his 7th victory of the season, now holds his biggest lead yet in the championship point standings, up 63 over Charles Leclerc. Ferrari going to be desperate here, Pierce, for a win this week to climb back into this championship race before F1 takes a summer break here, man. So let's go ahead and look at this week's Hungarian Grand Prix. I was just studying, reading your article on DK Nation, and we got Max Verstappen second in the odds this week to Leclerc. This week, the Red Bull driver, he told the media he doesn't think he has any chance in Hungary. This is not what you want to hear, Pierce, from your guy. That Ferrari is faster in the corners, and that will play into their hands on this track. So when it comes to betting Leclerc, plus 135, is that the better bet? Or would you actually take Verstappen at slightly longer odds at plus 140? What do you think?
I'll take Leclerc. And there's a little bit of gamesmanship here, but there's a lot of truth as well. The Red Bulls have power. They're faster on the straight stretches. They're faster at the power tracks, or the tracks that kind of blend high downforce and power. Hungary is a high downforce track. It's about being fast in the turns, and that's been Ferrari's advantage this season. So this track plays to Ferrari, and I imagine that they will win. And they should have won last week. Leclerc should have won. He had the lead. He was going to win that race. And then, unfortunately, he made an unforced error. And actually, it was like the first time in 17 years that a leader made an unforced error from – it's unbelievable. And then also, I mean, Sainz was fast as well. He just had to start DFL. So the Ferraris were good last week, and they'll be better this week. The Ferraris are going to be the play.
All right, that gamesmanship, that'd be the equivalent of you, I guess, talking up Jeff Ulrich before one of your Friday NASCAR segments with him, right?
It's up there. I'm not Max Verstappen. I don't have.
Yes, you are, dude. Wins. You're the Max Verstappen of F1 analysts here at DraftKings. Come on, dude. Don't sleep on yourself, dude. Let's do DFS. You're very welcome. Let's talk DFS strategy here. What's your approach? Because Verstappen is the most expensive guy here, but I have a feeling he's not your top-ranked DFS driver.
No, I'll go with Leclerc.
Yeah.
Max, though, don't sleep on Max. In 12 races, he's been in the optimal lineup 7 times. I know that $12,000 price tag seems pretty high, but he's the highest priced driver every week, and yet he is in the winning lineup over half of the time. So it really what it comes down to, it's either going to be Max or it's going to be Leclerc. I'm leaning towards Leclerc. As I mentioned before, when we talk about these high downforce tracks, the tracks that favor speed in the corners, that's an advantage for Ferrari. And what I'll use to decide really is just watch FP2, and we'll see who's got pace in that practice. And then also qualifying. If Leclerc gets the pole, which he typically does, then I think that's going to be a huge advantage. Leading out the gate, that would be pretty solid. So I'll take Leclerc.
Well, who are some other guys you're really hungry for on the DFS side?
I like what you did right there. Alex Albon is someone that I would consider. Alex Albon's not really a great driver. I mean, he's a fine driver. It's just that the Williams equipment isn't very good. But the appeal to Alex Albon is, A, he's very cheap, and B, his teammate is Nicholas Latifi, and he routinely finishes better than Nicholas Latifi, and so he scores some points at a bargain bin salary. Another guy at the bottom to look at is Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, again, not very good either, but he is cheap. And over the last 5 races, 4 times, he's beat his teammate Sebastian Vettel. In 2 of the last 3 races, he's earned a top 10 finish. I think you can also consider Esteban Ocon at $5,800. He won this race last season. Now, it's pretty fluky because everyone wrecked on lap 1, turn 1. But he is still a pretty solid driver. The Alpines have been the top of the midfield. he should get a top 10 regardless of weird outcomes. But again, he did win last season, so you should consider him.
Any other bets you have your eye on outside of wagering on the winner?
I think I would look at Lance Stroll to get a top 10. He's got a top 10 finish in 2 of the last 3 races. He's going in the right direction. Other than that, there's not really a lot of appealing bets for me this week.
What about Ferrari? Plus 350 here to win the championship. Would now be a good time to take a shot on those long odds?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to go there. Look, Ferrari's taking a big step forward. Their cars are very fast. Their engineers are absolutely doing their job this season, but they're just too inconsistent. Sometimes, although they have these fast engines, we've seen them fail multiple times. And Carlos Sainz had to take a new power unit last week because they're having all these engine problems. We've seen Leclerc and Sainz make mistakes. Sainz has made more mistakes than Leclerc, but still, these guys are making too many mistakes to win a championship. And then also, we've seen poor pit strategy. In Monaco, they threw a race away because they just made bad calls on pit road. They've got the car. They're just not quite used to being at the top, battling for a championship. Red Bull is. Red Bull went through this last season, and they came out on top with the championship. They had the experience. Ferrari might have the car, but they just lack the experience. I think it's just going to end up being Red Bull, and Red Bull has too much of a lead at this point.
All right, your job here today is done. You ready to talk some NASCAR with Jeff tomorrow, though, right? You're excited for that.
Yeah, Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's right, baby. We're going to Indy, man. All right, have a good rest of your day. We got the Yankees. They're panicking. They're making trades right now. We're going to dive into that coming up. But first, some live golf with Jeff and Colin. All right, guys, big week here as Live Golf. Live Golf is sticking around. America, 3rd tournament in Live Golf's history. They're going to go to 14 tournaments next year. Jeff Ulrich, DK Nation's Colin Sherwin. So the tour in New Jersey this week. I want to know who you're paying up for in the round 1 showdown on DraftKings, Jeff. We got a Live Tour showdown contest, $50K to first place. Just round 1 only. It's a shotgun start. 1:15 tomorrow afternoon. Who's the guy you're going to spend some cash on?
Yeah, I mean, pretty fun. I mean, big tournaments, obviously, you know, on a Friday coming out, 1 round only. But, I mean, I'm just going to keep playing, and Colin's probably going to echo this. I'm just going to keep playing Bryson DeChambeau until he just goes, you know, nuclear here. I think that when you look at the talent level of the Live Golf Tour as a whole, I mean, you know, Bryson's still a guy who's under 30, which is really like kind of rare right now in the Live Golf roster. He's a player who like a year ago was dominating on the PGA Tour, and you know, T10 at Portland, like one of his first events back from injury, and then back that up with a T8, a very surprising T8 at the Open Championship, where he was a low on play and helped a lot of people in big GPPs. I got no reason to think Bryson can't come out here and think that he's the big dog on this tour. I don't think that he's looking at late 30 guys like DJ and even Brooks Koepka at this point as real like huge competition. I think Bryson is in a spot to potentially dominate here towards you know, the end of the Live season, and I want to pay up for him at 10-6. That's where I would go absolutely to start lineups, even if he's going to be chalky tomorrow, which he probably will be. There's just, at some point, Bryson's going to come out here and I think dominate this tour.
Colin, wasn't too long ago, the brainy, beefy big hitter was running away with the 2020 U.S. Open before dealing with a host of injuries there. He's one of 5 guys going to cost you at least $10K.
Yeah, but he's the right play. I love how it takes 2 Canadians to tell America what to do here. This is just so simple. Look, there are 4 par 5s on this course. 2 of them are reachable by everybody. 2 of them are not reachable by everybody. Bryson's going to reach all 4. He's probably maybe the only guy in this field that can do it. It's going to save you 2 shots right there. He's the best value, plus 1,800 on the odds board to win first round. Yeah, this is kind of boring, but this course, according to Blue Golf, plays 7,700 yards.
Oh, my gosh.
So length is going to really be an issue here, and that's why Bryson really matches up well with this course. So, yeah, give me DeChambeau.
Are you still in Montreal?
I am. I am here. I know. My hotel's going to be knocking on the door here in about 30 minutes and kicking me out, but I am on my way back to Tampa. But yes, it has been a lovely. I even got the bagels. The famous bagels from
That's great. Yeah, I enjoyed your long thread on Twitter the other day about your passion for poutine.
It's delicious. It's so good. I'm so fat. I've gained so much weight here. It's terrible.
That's awesome. Well, don't forget to go visit Jeff Albert before you leave. I hear he's right in the area.
Oh, yeah, right next door.
Who's a solid value play, Colin? Give me a solid value play before the maids start knocking on your door.
I think Charles Howell still has some value here at plus 2,200. I think he can definitely play at this level. He putts well enough where he can do it, but the problem is it's going to be the length. Again, this is a course for bombers, so maybe a Matthew Wolff is a guy that you could take a look at here as well. But the thing with the Live Tour is they don't get a lot of guys who just hit it a really, really long way, except for Bryson and Dustin. So I think those are the guys to look at here. But I'm going to look at Matthew Wolff. I'm going to look at Charles Howell. But otherwise, I'm probably staying away from the board. Again, I think, in a 48-man field, which also, changes the odds so significantly because there's so little competition. I think Bryson's just the play here. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking it.
All right, Jeff, hook me up with a value play here. It's got to be someone who's got some distance off the tee.
Yeah, I mean, as Colin said, we don't have a huge group of bombers to choose from, so that's that obviously hurts our necessarily our value picks. But Matthew Wolff is a player. Again, the nice thing about taking Matthew Wolff in showdown contests is we just need one round from Matthew Wolff. He's obviously had trouble stringing together multiple good rounds, but for showdown purposes, it's perfect because Matthew Wolff can still throw in a 63. He was doing that at times on the PGA Tour. Now he comes, much like Bryson, to a field where he says, "Oh, okay. I mean, look, I'm clearly the longest player here. There's not 5 other guys hitting at 340 as well. He's probably going to find a little bit of confidence eventually on this tour. So I think he's actually an okay value for showdown. Again, we're not talking betting or outright or anything like that. The other guy I would take a look at is Hudson Swafford down there at 6,900. Yeah, I mean, this is a player who obviously, the first 2 live events, he's really done nothing. And I think I may have mentioned him at one point. But the thing about Swafford is that's kind of what he did on the PGA Tour as well. He did nothing for long periods. Then he kind of just went off. And the thing about Swafford too is he's probably one of the biggest players off the tee. He's very good par 5 scorer. You get him on these easier setups where there's lots of room off the tee. You can just hit driver, get it to these par 5s, and 2, he'll score for you. So I think at 6,900. And again, it's beautiful because it's showdown. We don't need him for the whole tournament. We just need him for one round. Swafford is definitely a very good value here. I'm kind of interested to see what the ownership percentage on him will be if people go back to him. But for me, he at under 7K when you got guys Henrik Stenson, who's 47. Does he even hit at 280 anymore? Henny Duplessis at the 7K. And Swafford's down there at 6,900. Yeah, Swafford's a good value.
All right, well, let's look at the full tournament odds on the DK Sportsbook. Jeff, Dustin Johnson, huge favorite, plus 500. Smart bet, or would you fade DJ?
Dear God, no, we're not betting Dustin Johnson at plus 500. Come on. I mean, he's starting to show a little bit of form, but this is not 2020 Dustin Johnson we're talking about. He's being priced like he is, which is kind of funny. If anything, I would say that the odds on Bryson and Dustin should probably be flipped. I mean, what again? I mean, I just don't understand how Dustin Johnson is getting this much respect. Is he one of the top 3 players in the field? Yes, but he's not playing that dominant to the point where we should be trusting him. And what have we seen in these Live Tour events? Random players kind of just getting up for it and making some runs, not necessarily Dustin Johnson, going out here and shipping every event. So, no, I don't think Dustin Johnson should be plus 500. I just think that that's a tad bit short, obviously, for what this tour has shown us so far. I would start cards down. I mean, obviously, I would start with Bryson, but you can even look further down. I mean, looking at a guy like Paul Casey at plus 2,000 is kind of interesting. I would much rather take a shot down the board on guys like Reed, Casey, potentially, maybe not Matthew Wolff, because like I just don't trust the consistency. Yeah. But Reed and Casey are definitely interesting to me. Two veteran guys, much like Johnson. I think 4 times in the odds, and they can certainly put together a decent tournament here.
And Colin, I know not very often you guys are going to advise going chalk on a predominant favorite with such short odds, but DJ enters the weekend here as the hottest golfer on the circuit. T6 at the Open, T3 Pumpkin Ridge, 8th place finish when the start of this tour in London.
Yeah, I need this. It's really close, but I need this about plus 625, 650, I think, to give it a shot. It's like right on that line, though. It's pretty close. Dustin Johnson's going to win this tournament more than any other player, but with the prices given, look, Brooks Koepka isn't exactly in form either. However, he's a guy with the kind of length that can sort of make up for some deficits on this course. And again, this field isn't that tough. It's like, just make a couple putts, flip a couple wedges and close. You can win this thing. So I like down the board a couple of different guys, for reasons specifically related to their game. But the other thing about these tournaments is that basically anybody over plus like 130, you could just completely ignore. The talent gap on this tour is also super duper wide. There's an A group, there's a big B group in the middle that's kind of meh, and then there's just a C group that you can completely eliminate. So you want to stay in those A and maybe a little bit of that B group, and that's about all you can do. But DJ, just a little too thin at plus 500. If he somehow ran it up to 6 before tomorrow, I'd give him a shot.
All right, Jeff, what about matchup props? Which ones do you like for this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know I just finished talking poorly about Dustin Johnson, but if you're going to give me a matchup for Dustin Johnson with Taylor Gooch involved, and I know DJ's minus 165, but I will actually eat the juice here. I'm not going to bet him outright at plus 500 necessarily, but I will actually take that matchup versus Taylor Gooch. Gooch has been pretty inconsistent on this tour thus far. I mean, I don't think that he should really be matched up against Dustin Johnson at any point without Dustin being like minus 200. So I just look at that as Dustin being like potentially just a good value, even though you're not getting great odds there. But there's certainly other spots. I mean, Bryson going up against my guy Louis again. Usti's starting to show a little bit of form, but with Bryson getting a little bit more confidence here, I think that line should be closer to minus 130 at the very least. So Dustin, Bryson, 2 guys you can certainly target in matchups here, maybe even parlay them, because I think their matchups here are just a product of the fact that the Live Tour just doesn't have that strong a field, and they're being matched up against guys they normally wouldn't be matched up against, and I think their odds just haven't really been bet down yet. So I think Dustin and Bryson, for matchup purposes, like I said, maybe a little parlay action here, are very good ones to take on.
Yeah, DJ or Bryson pulling down their first Live win, which would be the first Live victory by an American as well. So Colin, is there a matchup you like, a matchup bet?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. I mean, this is like terrible television that we're doing here, or even worse on the internet, because 100%. We're both just agreeing on everything. Yeah, this is like
we're doing it again. You guys are doing it again.
We're doing it. Frozen cold takes here. So if you parlay DJ and Bryson, it's plus 194. I think that's the move. I mean, look, Gooch shows flashes of confidence, but again, on this course, DJ's just going to have such an advantage. And then I don't see how Louis gets around a 7,700-yard course better than Bryson DeChambeau, who's going to cut off at least 2, and there may be some par 4s that Bryson's going to be able to reach this week too. So, give me those guys, even with the rough short game that Bryson sometimes displays. This is just a setup that favors him. So take the plus 194. See, we're gambling here a little bit. A little plus money for plus 194.
Thank you.
Come on, let's go.
Yep. I'm not going to ask you two. I'm not going to ask you two who your pick to win is, because I don't want to hear you both go on about Bryson DeChambeau again. This has been another terrible segment by you two together, and I hope we never do this again. I hope we never do this again. No, college football starts in 30 days, so that's what we want to talk about right now. Colin, safe travels back, my little cheese curd, And this week on DraftKings Unreasonable Odds podcast, Julian Edlow welcomed on one of his favorite guests, college guru Phil Steele. Here they are discussing the outlook for Julian's Alabama Crimson Tide on their season.
I don't think you think Alabama loses any game, but what do you think the best chance at an Alabama loss could be?
I would say it's probably in back-to-back weeks. The Texas A&M game, because Jimbo Fisher's doing a fantastic job recruiting, not just this year when he brought in his number one class, but each of his 5 years. So they have the talent to play with Alabama. They're less experienced in Alabama now, but by the time they play Alabama, it'll be the middle of the season. But I still have Alabama a 14-point favorite. I think they're a little larger than that in Vegas. And then the very next week, they play Tennessee on the road. Tennessee's got a puncher's chance in every game. They averaged about 40 points per game last year. They've got Hendon Hooker back at QB, a dangerous set of receivers, an improved offensive line, and improved defense overall. All three of the units rank in my top units in the front of the magazine. And what we saw with Alabama, Mississippi when they played 2 years ago in Lane Kiffin, the explosive offense had a puncher's chance in every game. I think Tennessee at home catches them in a right spot. But for the record, I've got them a double-digit favorite in every game. And if I was playing an over-under on Bama, I would take the over. And I'll say this about the Powers this year, Julian, and we'll probably touch on this and a few other teams we talk about. Last year, the Powers were at a deficit because almost every coach I talked to, and 90% of them said, Phil, this is the deepest we've ever been. We were able to go 3 deep in the spring. And the reason for that, everybody had everybody back due to COVID. They had 17, 18, 19 returning starters. Well, the Powers lost players to the NFL draft, so Alabama struggled at times. I mean, they lost A&M. Florida outgained them. They struggled against LSU, should have lost to Auburn last year. Ohio State was not even in the Big Ten title game. Clemson not even in the ACC title game. Oklahoma not even in the Big 12 title game. So we saw the Powers struggle last year. This year, everybody's on equal footing. So I think we see a return to the Powers. And so I would go with over in Alabama on the 11.
First big move, man. Here, I'll come over. I'll point it out. First big move of the MLB trade season. The trade deadline is Tuesday, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Tuesday is August 2nd. So what happened was the Yankees get swept in the Subway Series by the Mets. They're panicking. They're freaking out. I think they've lost 10 of their last 15. So they go out and they get Benny Biceps from the Royals. These bros ain't royal. Yeah, what they get in return? 3 minor league pitchers. I forget this is a touchscreen. Some of them are good. I guess one of them isn't, if you believe everybody on Twitter. So he also doesn't have to travel far because the Royals open up a 4-game series against the Yankees in New York. So it was just really easy for all parties involved. Let's get into this. DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, Matt Meiselman, RotoWire's Paul Bruno are here. Let's cover the bases. Before we do that, though, hey, Fryer, first base. What will Benintendi bring to the Yankees lineup? What do you think here, man?
He'll bring a guy who can do a lot more damage than Joey Gallo's been doing at this moment. I know with Benintendi, there was the controversy because they go to Toronto and then all of Kansas City's lineup can't play, and Benintendi's one of them, one of the hottest trade pieces on the market. But at the same time, you look at the Royals schedule, they have 3 games in the regular season against the Blue Jays left. That's it. And then you go to the postseason, I understand you run into some issues, but this team is they're stacked already. They have an amazing pitching staff. Their offense is absurd. I know there's a little bit of concern with Stanton right now because he's dealing with Achilles soreness, but that was still a retroactive IL move. This is the Yankees doing Yankee things, and you love to see at least one AL East team throwing their weight around a little bit.
All right, Paul, Juan Soto, I guess, is he out of the picture now for the Yankees?
I don't know. I think they always go in for the biggest piece that's out there. So don't count them out on that yet. But as far as Benintendi, look, this guy was highly sought after. Even we were hearing rumors in Toronto that the Jays were interested. But when it became obvious that he was not vaccinated, that came off the table real quick. And the Yankees, of course, they may face the Jays in the playoffs. So he might not be a factor in half of the games in that series, should it come to pass. But what they're getting is a guy who is having his best offensive year in terms of batting average, putting the ball in play. 320 batting average the mark. His power stats are a bit down from what is normal for him, but I bet now that he's back in the AL East, we'll see an uptick in that area too. And so a good move by the Yankees and an upgrade defensively as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, he may hit like 10, 15 home runs coming down the stretch here in that Yankee Stadium. Matty, Yankees lead over the Houston Astros for home field advantage. I'm looking at it now. It's been sliced to 2 games, but is Benintendi that missing piece for the Yankees outfield now?
I mean, I think it's a good move, but I don't really see this as a major needle mover. Benintendi's been pretty lucky this year. He has a 366 batting average on balls in play. And I think when that regresses to a more normal number around 300, like, he'll be good. And he's probably worth like a half win going forward at this point. So he certainly helps. Honestly, the reason I'm most excited about this move is because Benintendi wasn't going to get to face Noah Syndergaard again this year. The Yankees actually do have a series with the Angels at the end of August. So one more chance for Benintendi to steal a base off the league's easiest stolen base guy in Syndergaard. So that'll be fun if they get to have that series again. The Royals were done playing the Angels. Clearly, I'm picking a different reason than this being a huge move for the Yankees. Like, I'm kind of, just avoiding it a bit because I think it helps, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Fryer going to be a little awkward when he's standing up for the national anthem inside Fenway Park.
Yeah, just a little bit. Hey, that's what the Red Sox get. They're brass. I mean, they're treating this team like they're the Tampa Bay Rays. It's an embarrassment. Yeah,
no, it really is right now. Let's go to second base, though. Fryer, I'll start with you once again. Tonight's slate, favorite high-priced DFS play. Who is it going to be?
Yeah, Chris Bryant jumps out right away, 5K, back at Coors, going up against the Dodgers. Facing Tyler Anderson, who we've seen quite a bit throughout his career, and he has destroyed 9 for 22, 4 home runs, a pair of doubles. It's like Agent Smith versus Neo, except this Mr. Anderson does not have an advantage. 43 his last 43 plate appearances against left-handed pitching. He's only got a 23.7% ground ball rate, despite a 44.7% hard contact rate. That's absolutely absurd, and that's all turned into a 359 ISO. I like the over on his total bases prop tonight too, but when we're talking DFS, man, this is a guy you've got to have on the high price range.
All right, Paul, we're looking at 8 games on the main slate. Your favorite high price DFS play is who and why?
Well, first I got to say I'm so glad Nick leaned on some historical batter versus pitcher numbers because I got ripped in the past by other panelists here. I lean on that stuff too, because if I know what you're throwing and I feel good about it, I'm going to do well and I'm going to keep doing well. And that's why I lean on a guy like Freddie Freeman. Again, a guy who has a good record against his mound opponent tonight, Jose Urena. 14 for 34 is the history there, but it includes 4 homers, 9 extra base knocks, an OPS of 1.4. Why wouldn't I pick on a guy like that? The righty's been hit hard all season by the Dodgers, in fact, so it might be a worthy stack there. And on top of that, he's been held hitless only once in his last 15 starts, has 7 doubles and 5 homers in a recent power surge. So all signs point to a big night for Freddie Freeman, and I'm on it.
All right, Matty, who are you going to drop some cash on tonight in DFS?
I'm going to spend over 5K on Corey Seager, and it's not because I think he's still on the Dodgers. Like, part of me is like, wait, am I just including him in the stack? No, this is not why. Everyone is going to be playing the Dodgers tonight, and the Dodgers are in an amazing spot. Like, I'm not even saying not to do that. But also, everyone is going to be playing Shohei Ohtani on the mound for his matchup with the Rangers, and Seager is one of the best hitting shortstops in baseball. He's in a bad matchup, but Ohtani could be like 70% owned tonight, and Texas is a team that has some power. So most likely, Texas is going to strike out a lot, like the whole team. But there is a chance that they get to Ohtani, get to a bad Angels bullpen, and I think this could be a massive opportunity as a leverage stack. Seager, for me, is the guy that leads the way. Also, being their best hitter as a shortstop is especially valuable for DFS. It's a tough position, and one where I think everyone is going to play Trey Turner and no one plays Corey Seager. So I really like Texas overall versus Ohtani, but Seager is my favorite there.
Well, speaking of valuable in DFS, let's go to third base. Favorite value play on DraftKings tonight, Fryer?
Yeah, Jonathan Scope at 2.3K. Look, I know he hasn't done a whole heck of a lot against left-handed pitching over his last 50 plate appearances. By and large in the season, he hasn't put up great numbers against lefty, but he does have a bit of momentum coming off his last 2 games. And I know he hasn't had an extra base hit since, was it the 21st of the month? So he's got momentum, but he still hasn't had an extra base hit in a while. Now he's going up against a guy who, again, he's only seen a little bit here. We don't have the same batter versus pitcher numbers like we do with Bryant, but he does have a double and a home run against Yusei Kikuchi in 9 plate appearances, so he can hit for power against this guy. And the big thing with Kikuchi, too, why I want to target him, he's coming off the IL, too. And I mean, I know he had like one good start before his injury start, but before that, he had been struggling. So there's some value in this Tigers line tonight, and Scope's a guy I love to use.
Paul, who do you want? Value.
A couple of guys to think about. Darren Ruff of the Giants cost $3,200 tonight, but he's been worth more than that in the past 9 games. Seen him hit 4 home runs. He'll enjoy a platoon edge against Giants starter Alex Wood, who has been having trouble keeping the ball in the park with a lot of dingers in his last 6 starts. So hot meets cold, and I'll take the hot batter. The All-Star break served Jared Welsh very well as he emerged from the break on his best streak of the season with 7 hits, including 4 for extra bases over the last 20 at-bats. Add in the struggles of Texas starter Spencer Howard, who's been torched for 10 homers in only 25 in a 3rd innings pitch. I think I could do better than that. And a platoon advantage for Walsh. And I feel very good about spending the money on him tonight.
Maddie, who do you feel good spending money on for a value play? So really, maybe not a whole lot of money, but say, hey, you could get me a lot of points.
Yeah, well, a lot of those players are Dodgers, and I will talk about this situation. Max Muncy is $3,800, and he is in an unbelievable spot at Coors Field. Jose Urena, platoon advantage, and Muncy is also a guy who is better against sinker ballers or pitches down in the strike zone. Like it's everything sets up perfectly for Muncy. What I do want to add, though, is that Justin Turner is also only third base eligible. They're in the same lineup, and you can only play one of them. And then with Bobby Dalbec having like his best game of his career, he's also going to be a popular play at third base. Like I like Muncy, and I was planning on just talking about Muncy, but Turner could be someone who winds up single-digit owned in a great spot just because Muncy's there and way more people will go there at the cheaper price tag. So I like both, but I think in larger GPPs, Turner might be the better pick.
All right, gentlemen, take us home. Paul, I'll start with you here. We got to go to the DK Sportsbook. Run line or money line bet that you really like tonight? 8-game main slate.
Well, I look back to last week when the Astros had their way with the Mariners, quite convincing in that series, and I think there's going to be a bit of a revenge factor tonight. The starting pitching favors Seattle heavily in this matchup, and that's where I'm going. So Logan Gilbert, for his parts, pitched to a 2.77 ERA all season, including 3 quality starts against the division rivals. Conversely, Jose Urquidy has been torched twice by the Mariners. In 2 of the 3 starts anyway, he's looked very poor. So these disparities and the revenge factor that I'm counting on will have me leaning on the visitors for the money line bet and a plus 120 payout.
All right, where do you want to go here, Mr. Fryer?
Yeah, so I mean, I like the Tigers as big underdogs against the Jays because I don't like Kikuchi. The Tigers have been hitting left-handed pitching well this month. And then Tyler Alexander, I don't like backing him a whole heck of a lot, but the Jays don't have great numbers against lefties this month. So if you're looking for a money line underdog, there you go. But my favorite play of the night is definitely Phillies run line going up against the Pirates. We got Zach Wheeler versus Zach Thompson, not to be confused with DraftKings Zach Thompson. I would never go against him.
No.
But when you look at the Phillies, a number that jumped out when I was doing my research on this play. They had the same BABIP against right-handed pitching this month, 272. But you look at the hard contact that these two teams are making, and there's a huge gap in favor of the Phillies. So I love them going up against Thompson. Wheeler, he's coming off a 7-inning, 1-run effort. They've lost his last 2 starts. Personally, I mean, in the end, I like. I just love. I think there's a huge disadvantage for the Pirates in this matchup. Thus, the run line play.
Yesterday, Kenny Ducey told me that Zach Thompson, our Zach Thompson, followed him and unfollowed him on Twitter, not once, but twice recently. Yep, so something to keep in mind there.
I care, Emerson, just so you know.
I know.
Right, the graphics team.
Cody does.
Howie.
Cody doesn't. Matty Ice, run line or money line bet tonight. Stop doing that. Stop hitting that button, Cody.
I'm going with the money line bet. That is a little weird and painful for me, actually, because I've been on the Orioles this whole series, but I'm going to flip to the other side and take the Rays for this final game. And I just don't think Jordan Lyles is good. And he's gotten a little bit of love in DFS contests. He's, just to tease this a little bit too, he's the most expensive pitcher for the early slate for DFS today. The Rays are a better team than the Orioles, and I think Yarbrough is a better pitcher than Lyles. And the Rays are actually underdogs in this game, which is why it's different than what it's been in earlier games in this series, where the Orioles were the underdogs in every game. I think it's pretty close to a coin flip. I'd give the Rays a slight advantage, also because Cedric Mullins is getting the afternoon off, so probably the Orioles' best player. And then Adley Rutschman is out of the lineup too. Like, it's a little bit worse version of the Orioles today. So I'm going with the Rays as surprising underdogs for this one.
All right, you guys have been tremendous. Appreciate the help. That's a show, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We're back here live in studio, 11 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow on Friday. You got the slate tonight, 5 o'clock, and the DraftKings Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube pages. And Madden kicking off here at high noon. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Thirsty Thursday.